Most women believe that when a man keeps them close, it must mean he wants them in his life. But what if I told you that closeness can be an illusion? That sometimes you are not living beside him, but instead trapped inside his subconscious, like a ghost haunting his inner chambers. You feel present, yet strangely absent, needed but never fully chosen. This is the quiet prison many women enter without realizing it. Imagine being woven into the fabric of his inner world, but never seated at the table of his external life. You exist as a projection, a symbol, an echo of what he cannot face alone. You are there when he dreams, when he fears abandonment, when his loneliness gnaws at him in the night. But when the day comes, when life requires him to act, to commit, to step into presence, you vanish like smoke against sunlight. In Jung's words, you are more anima than woman to him, more reflection of his need than recognition of your being. The first sign is the hollow familiarity, that uncanny sense that you are important but never prioritized. He speaks to you with intensity in private, confesses his wounds, his desires, even his regrets. You carry the weight of his shadows, offering him understanding that he cannot find anywhere else. Yet, when it is time to integrate you into his lived reality, friends, family, future plans, you find yourself curiously erased. Like a figure he keeps in the corridors of his psyche, you are central to his subconscious, but peripheral to his actual life. Philosophers and poets alike have spoken of this paradox. Seneca once said that a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. And often, men suffer their own inability to meet reality, preferring instead to hold you in their imagination, where you cannot challenge their limits. It feels like intimacy, but it is safety disguised as passion. He clings to the image of you because reality terrifies him, and you, unknowingly, become the guardian of his comfort rather than the partner of his life. This is not love. In its mature form, it is projection. He confuses you with the unlived parts of himself. To him, you are a vessel of possibility, a mirror of his unmet desires, a bomb for his inadequacy. But the true woman in front of him, the one with her own needs, her own sovereignty, remains unseen, and so you begin to feel the fracture. You ask yourself, why am I so deeply felt, yet so easily forgotten in the living world? Why am I known in his silence, but invisible in his plans? The truth is simple but difficult. You are living in his subconscious, not in his life. You are there as an archetype, a dream figure, a muse that stirs his inner fire but does not demand his accountability. This is the trap of many women who confuse emotional intensity with emotional presence. A man may feel you more deeply than anyone, but still lack the courage to truly hold you. His subconscious embraces you. His life neglects you, and here is where the turning point begins. You are not meant to be a shadow dancer in his inner theater. You are flesh, spirit, and sovereign soul. You are not born to be half-remembered in someone else's imagination. You are not the phantom he calls upon when lonely, nor the secret comfort he hides from the daylight of real commitment. To remain in that role is to dim your own light, to confuse being wanted with being chosen. The woman who awakens to this truth feels both pain and liberation. Pain, because she sees clearly what was once blurred by longing. Liberation, because she realizes she has never belonged to his world, only to herself. The choice then becomes hers, to continue dwelling in his subconscious as an echo, or to step fully into her own life, demanding the kind of love that does not vanish when morning comes. And so the first sign becomes clear. if his actions keep you invisible to the world he lives in, even as his words keep you alive in the world he hides inside. You are not living in his life, you are only residing in his subconscious. It is not cruelty, but cowardice that keeps you there, and until he chooses courage, you will remain an idea instead of a partner. The question is not whether he feels youth, the question is whether he can hold you. And that is the question you must learn to ask yourself with clarity, before years slip away like water through open hands. There is a strange comfort in being remembered by a man in his secret hours. You feel significant because his words are heavy with longing, his eyes soften when he confesses his private fears, and his soul seems to open only for you. But comfort is not the same as belonging. A man can lean on you like a crutch while still walking away from you every single day. He can share with you his darkness while refusing to share with you his dawn. The second sign emerges here. You feel essential, yet replaceable. He does not let you go, but neither does he claim you openly. In Jungian language, you have become a symbolic carrier of his antimatter, inner feminine he cannot yet integrate. He projects his unhealed longing, his fractured tenderness, and his fears of inadequacy onto you. That makes you indispensable to his inner balance, yet strangely optional to his outer life. And so, you oscillate between feeling like the center of his gravity and the ghost of a life he never builds with you. Think of this in the way Marcus Aurelius described the mind that dwells often in illusions, preferring the comfort of what is, imagined over the discipline of what is real. The man who holds you in his subconscious but not in his life is like a philosopher who writes endless meditations but never dares to live them. You are written into his inner book of need, but never into the daily calendar of action. That is why the woman in this position often feels the deep ache of contradiction. He feels close, yet acts distant. He feels dependent, yet remains detached. This tension grows sharper when you realize he treats your presence like an oasis. He comes to you when thirsty, when life has scorched him, when loneliness leaves him hollow. In those moments, your presence feels like salvation. But when his thirst is quenched, when his spirit feels temporarily restored, he returns to the desert of his own avoidance. You are the well he drinks from, but not the land he plants his roots in. And slowly, you begin to sense that your role is not partnership, but replenishment, necessary, but never fully honored. Here lies the psychological wound. The subconscious is not where relationships are meant to remain, it is the rehearsal stage, not the performance. To live only there is to remain trapped in his fantasy, his fears, his unresolved past. Many women confuse this intense pull with love, but it is often only projection. He is relating less to you as a woman, and more to the archetype he has crafted within his mind. You become the symbolic healer, the imagined mother, the eternal muse. Yet these roles leave no space for the sovereign woman who seeks to walk beside him in reality. The danger of this dynamic is subtle erosion. Over time, you start negotiating with yourself, convincing your heart that emotional intensity must be enough, that being needed in his subconscious is better than being forgotten. But every time he keeps you hidden from the fabric of his daily existence, his friends, his family, his future, you lose a fragment of your own wholeness. You start to carry not only his shadows, but also the weight of your own diminishing presence. This is where many women begin to lose themselves, mistaking deep emotional echoes for grounded, lived love. Yet, there is power in recognition. When a woman sees clearly that she is being kept in the chambers of his subconscious, she begins to reclaim her agency. She can ask herself, with brutal honesty, am I his choice, or am I his coping mechanism? Am I the woman he invites into his life, or the figure he summons in his solitude? These questions cut sharply, but they also awaken the truth, and in truth lies the first step toward liberation. The Stoics taught that nothing belongs to us but our own mind, our own will, our own virtue. A woman who remembers this cannot be caged inside the dream of another. She may love him deeply, but she will not stay as a phantom in his inner world. She knows that love requires embodiment, not just imagination. She knows that if a man cannot walk with her in the daylight of his life, then his midnight longings are only fragments, not foundations. So the second sign becomes undeniable when his dependence on you is vast, but his integration of you into his life is absent. You are living inside his subconscious and not his world. You may be everything to him when he is alone, but nothing to him when he steps outside. And the more you accept this role, the more you confirm it. The choice, as always, belongs not to him, but to you whether to remain an echo, or to insist on being heard in the living chorus of his life. The third sign reveals itself in the silence between his words and his actions. He tells you that you matter, that you are different, that there is something about you he cannot let go of. But the reality of his life, the choices he makes when you are not present, tells another story. Promises linger in the air like perfume, sweet but vanishing. Invitations never arrive. The connection feels urgent in private, yet evaporates the moment it is tested by the external world. This is where the subconscious reveals its most cunning trick. A man who keeps you in his psyche but not his life often creates a rhythm of almost committed, almost vulnerable, almost present. You live in a cycle of near arrivals, as if the relationship is forever about to begin. In Jung's language, you become part of his unintegrated shadow, a symbol of possibility he clings to, but never transforms into lived reality. And so you wait. You wait for him to act on the words he whispers in the dark. You wait for the day when his longing finally crosses the threshold into courage. But days turn into months, and months into years, and the cycle repeats itself with cruel precision. For many women, this is the most painful part. He does not dismiss you, he does not reject you, he does not release you. Instead, he keeps you. Suspend important enough to return to, but never important enough to claim. And here the paradox cuts the deepest, because he keeps you close enough to hope. You cannot fully walk away. But because he never brings you fully into his life, you cannot fully belong. It is the purgatory of modern relationships, half dream, half reality. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How true this is when a woman becomes trapped in a man's subconscious. You suffer the weight of what could be, what should be, what almost is. You begin to construct stories in your own mind to reconcile the contradictions. He must be afraid. He must be healing. He must be waiting for the right moment. And while you create these explanations, your own life waits, your own path stalls, your own radiance dims. But reality has no patience for illusions. If a man cannot bring you into his tangible world, then what he offers you is not partnership, but refuge for his loneliness, refuge for his ego, refuge for the wounds he cannot yet face. And when you accept that role, you unknowingly trade your own agency for his comfort. You stop asking for embodiment and settle for imagination. You stop asking for presence and settle for memory. You stop asking for love and settle for longing. This sin is not about whether he loves you, because love can exist in fragments, in echoes, in half-lived devotion. The deeper question is whether he is able to choose you not only in his heart, but in his hands, his days, his decisions. A man's subconscious can hold hundreds of women he once desired, but his life will only reveal the woman he has chosen. And if you are not in that place, you must face the bitter truth. You are cherished in his inner world, but denied in his outer one. The turning point comes when a woman stops asking why and starts asking what. Not, why doesn't he bring me into his life? But what am I losing by remaining here? Not, why won't he act? But what does it cost me to wait? This shift marks the beginning of empowerment. Because once you recognize that, his silence between word and deed is not temporary but structural, you see clearly that the cage is not his, is yours. You are the one standing in it, holding the door open yet refusing to walk out. Carl Jung spoke often of individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating shadow and light, of moving beyond projection into true selfhood. As a woman in this situation means to withdraw your energy from his unfinished story and return it to your own. It means stepping out of the suspension of almost and grounding yourself in the reality of now. It means refusing to live as a figure in someone else's imagination when you were born to be the author of your own life. So the third sign is this: when his words ignite you, but his actions abandon you. When you are forever almost but never arrived, you are living inside his subconscious, not his life. And until you face that truth with courage, you will continue to suffer in the limbo of illusion. But when you finally see it for what it is, you awaken the power to step out of his subconscious and fully into your own life. That awakening, though painful, is the beginning of true freedom. The fourth sign emerges in the way you feel invisible in the spaces where life truly unfolds. He may speak of you in whispers, tell you how much you mean to him, even hint at futures that sound golden when cloaked in late-night conversation. But when he steps into the world of daylight, his family gatherings, his friendships, his commitments, presence dissolves like mist. You are the story he tells himself, not the story he tells others. You exist in secrecy, not in celebration. And slowly, your spirit begins to notice the absence, the hollow silence where your name should have been spoken with pride. This invisibility is no accident. To keep you in his subconscious means he cannot yet reconcile you with his reality. Perhaps you do not fit the image he projects outward, or perhaps his fear of exposure is too great. Jung would remind us that the mask a man wears in the world, the persona, is often at odds with the truths he hides in the psyche. If you are kept in the subconscious, it is because you do not align with the persona he shows to others, and that dissonance becomes your prison. You feel like his sanctuary, yet never his declaration, his confidant, but never his choice in the light. In this way, you become a hidden archetype. You may be the muse, inspiring him in silence. You may be the mother, soothing his wounds where others cannot see. You may even be the temptress, kept hidden because her presence threatens his carefully constructed life. But whatever role you embody in his subconscious, you are never allowed to stand as the full, sovereign woman in his reality. And the tragedy is that part of you begins to accept it, to justify it, to mistake secrecy for intimacy. But true love is never ashamed of itself. It does not hide in shadows. The Stoics remind us that dignity cannot be granted by another, it must be claimed by the self. Epictetus once taught that no man can enslave you unless you consent to the chains. And here, the chain is not his silence, it is your willingness to remain in it. Each time you allow yourself to be hidden, each time time you convince yourself that one day he will bring you into the light, you strengthen the bars of the invisible cage. This is the bitter medicine. What keeps you in his subconscious is not his power, but your permission. But there is a breaking point, a threshold where the soul can no longer bear invisibility. You begin to feel that your essence is too large for secrecy, that your truth is too radiant to be dimmed. This realization stirs a quiet rebellion inside you. It is the moment you stop asking to be seen by him and start demanding to see yourself again. You remember that the woman you are was never born to be hidden. You remember that silence is not intimacy, and invisibility is not love. You remember that being known in secret is not the same as being chosen in truth. This is the fire of individuation. Jung spoke of it as the process by which a person becomes whole, no longer a fragment in another's psyche, but a complete being in her own right. For the woman caught in this dynamic, individuation means reclaiming her place in the visible world. It means stepping out of his subconscious and into her own life with unapologetic presence. It means declaring to herself, I will not live in the shadows of a man's fear. I will not be a muse without being a partner. I will not be reduced to a secret when I was made to be a sovereign soul. And here lies the transformation. The fourth, sin, once recognized, becomes a call to action. If you are hidden in his life but exalted in his subconscious, then the truth is simple. You are not his partner, you are his escape, and escapes are never sustainable. They are fleeting, fragile, built on the fear of exposure. A woman of worth cannot remain there. She must either be embraced fully or she must walk away entirely. Anything in between is a slow death of spirit. The empowerment comes when you realize that walking away is not loss, it is reclamation. It is the act of refusing to let your worth be defined by the shadows of someone else's fear. It is stepping into the world not as a secret, but as a presence that demands recognition. For the woman who knows her value, there is no greater dignity than this, to leave behind the spaces where she is hidden, and to enter only the spaces where she can be fully seen. So, the fourth sign stands as a warning and an invitation. If you find yourself cherished in silence but erased in daylight, loved in whispers but ignored in gatherings, then you are not in his life, you are buried in his subconscious. The question is no longer whether he will bring you into the light. The question is whether you will bring yourself into it. The fifth and final sign reveals itself not in his words, nor even in his silences, but in the way your soul begins to feel unanchored. You notice it in the quiet moments when you lie awake, wondering why someone who claims to care for you leaves you with such a hollow ache. You begin to sense that your presence in his world is conditional, not because he rejects you outright, but because he cannot yet hold the fullness of who you are. And so you live in fragmented conversations, fragmented promises, fragmented love. His subconscious clings to you because you represent something unresolved within him. But his life resists you because to integrate you would require transformation. This is the cruelest paradox. He may love you in ways he cannot articulate, but the love is not whole, it is broken by fear, by ego, by the archetypal shadows he has not yet faced. Jung often wrote that until a man integrates his shadow, he projects it onto others, forcing them to live out the parts of himself he cannot accept. In this dynamic, you carry not only your own weight, but his as well. You become the vessel for his unresolved wounds, the mirror of his fears, the placeholder for the love he cannot yet embody. And in carrying this role, you begin to feel smaller, as though your identity is dissolving into his unfinished story. The sign is this: when your energy is consumed by sustaining his inner balance while your own spirit starves, you are living inside his subconscious and not in his life. You notice that your joy is muted, that your laughter feels restrained, that your dreams are deferred. You catch yourself adjusting, bending, silencing your own needs to maintain your place in his inner theater. And though you may not admit it, at first, deep down, you know your essence is being diminished, not celebrated. You are surviving in his shadows, not thriving in your own light. This is the final tension, the point where the cost becomes undeniable. For a time, you may accept invisibility, secrecy, and contradiction because the intensity feels intoxicating. But eventually, the hunger of your own soul grows louder. It demands to be seen, not as a fragment of his psyche, but as a sovereign being in your own right. The wound becomes the teacher. You learn that to stay here any longer is not loyalty, it is betrayal of yourself. To keep living in his subconscious is to abandon the life that calls you forward. And so the transformation begins. A woman who awakens to this truth steps back into her own center. She withdraws her energy from his shadows and returns it to her own light. She remembers that she is not a muse, a projection, or a symbol. She is flesh and spirit, desire and wisdom, wholeness incarnate. She realizes that true love cannot live in fragments. It must stand in the open, withstand the test of daylight, and honor her presence fully. Anything less is not love, but longing disguised as devotion. The Stoics would say that freedom is found in detachment from what is not ours. And here, the truth is piercing. A man's subconscious does not belong to you, and you do not belong inside it. You belong in the living world, in choices, in action, in the reality of being chosen. Once you see this, you no longer beg to be integrated into his life. You decide to integrate yourself back into your own. You stop waiting for him to choose courage, and instead choose your own. The culmination of this journey is not bitterness, but clarity. You no longer resent him for keeping you in his subconscious. Simply refuse to remain there. You no longer chase the shadow of what could be, you walk toward the light of what is. You no longer barter your worth for scraps of attention. You remember that your worth was never negotiable. The chains dissolve the moment you recognize that they were made of air, held together only by your willingness to remain unseen. And so the closing truth arrives, simple and unshakable. The woman who knows her worth does not live as a phantom in any man's inner world. She does not wait to be claimed or hidden or half-loved. She steps fully into her own life, radiant and unafraid, knowing that the man who is ready for her will not keep her in his subconscious. He will meet her in reality. For only there can love truly breathe. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.